the honourable member from Cowichan, Langford, excuse me, from Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you and to all of my colleagues in the House. I trust that everyone has had an enjoyable summer back in their ridings, and here we are at the first day back. I am pleased to also rise today during private members' business to share some of my thoughts on Bill C-379 as the NDP's public safety critic. And I know that the member who introduced it, the member for Prince Albert, I know he is coming at this issue with sincerity, and that I think every member in this House, no matter what political party you belong to, understands that the issue of car thefts in Canada is serious. It is not a victimless crime. We all represent communities that have suffered from it, and it is certainly something that we need an all-encompassing policy response to effectively deal with. Mr. Speaker, the bill before us today, C-379, it is a relatively short bill, as most private members' bills are, but essentially what it is seeking to do, the main part of the bill, is seeking to increase the minimum term of imprisonment for repeat offenders from 6 months to 3 years. Now, before I get into a discussion of the bill itself, I do want to acknowledge the severity of car thefts in Canada. I am a member of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. That committee has been conducting a study into this very issue, and we are getting close to when we will be able to hopefully table a report in the House of Commons with its recommendations for the government. That report, of course, will be based on the full spectrum of witness testimony that we heard at our committee. But just to put this in context, Mr. Speaker, we know that there has been a significant increase in vehicle thefts across the country. According to Statistics Canada, there were 83,416 vehicle thefts that were recorded in 2021. And then a year later in 2022, that number jumped to 105,673. So a significant increase in just 1 year's time. Between February the 26th and May 23rd of this year, we at the Public Safety Committee held 6 meetings, and we had a total of 42 witnesses with 11 briefs that were submitted. Committee members were also invited to take a trip to the Port of Montreal so that they could actually see in person what CBSA operations were like there and some of the challenges that CBSA members deal with in terms of how they inspect containers, because that is the primary port and method by which stolen cars in Canada exit our country to find lucrative markets abroad. And it is a very big problem. There is an incredible amount of transnational criminal organization that goes into these operations, and the payoff can be quite significant. For one stolen car, people can fetch a price of anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 or even higher. So it is a significant return on the investments that criminal organizations make to do this. But I will underline this, Mr. Speaker. I would encourage members to wait for that report to come out so that we can review the recommendations that come in it, because I do believe that to effectively deal with this problem, we need an all-encompassing and holistic approach that is not just going to rely on criminal law, but a variety of other different policy measures and programs to tackle it. The main problem I have with this bill is its reliance on a mandatory minimum as a fix-all for a very real and complex problem. And the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is because if you look at the evidence, and there is a tremendous amount of evidence out there, it shows very clearly that mandatory minimum sentences produce substantial harm, but they have no overall benefit to crime control. And that is our guiding star in this debate. We want crime control. We want to see it come down. But again, the evidence, and it is very clearly available, shows that mandatory minimums do not have a beneficial effect on that. What they do, Mr. Speaker, is they represent an intrusion by the legislative branch into an area that is under judicial jurisdiction. They constrain judicial discretion. There is evidence that they deepen racial disparities in the criminal legal system, and they do cause far-reaching harm to individuals, families, and communities. And again, I say this, Mr. Speaker, in the context that auto theft, the actual crime itself, is not victimless, and we also have to keep that in balance, that when a person experiences a car theft, that is a very real problem that we must address, and it causes a significant amount of hurt in our communities. But again, I firmly believe, and the evidence bears this out, is that sentences must be based on individual contextual factors relating to each offense and to each offender, rather than a one-size-fits-all, a legislated minimum sentence that often result in ineffective, expensive, and unduly harsh periods of incarceration. So again, the John Howard Society has done a meta-study analysis of 116 studies into this subject from both Canada and the United States. So a massive analysis of the literature and evidence that is out there. And again, some of the main findings: custodial sanctions have no effect on reoffending, or actually slightly increase it when compared to the effects of non-custodial sanctions such as probation. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this fact. I mean, I think members here have a variety of tools at their disposal. They have the Library of Parliament. They can read that same evidence. But I think this point needs to be hammered home. It is very clear that those mandatory minimums do not deter crime. And actually, there is evidence that if we put in lengthier periods of incarceration, we could actually see an increase in recidivism amongst offenders, and that is certainly not a result that we are aiming for. I also want to talk a little bit about the cost, Mr. Speaker, because in addition to the fact that mandatory minimums affect Indigenous, Black, and racialized Canadians in a very disproportionate way, there's also the fact that the cost of housing an inmate in a federal institution has now reached $428 a day. So if we multiply that by 365, we now know that the cost for an individual in a federal institution per year is now $156,220. That is an astonishing cost to taxpayers, and it is far more expensive than the crime prevention and social outreach programs, which often have much better results and a far better track record. So if we were to take that cost, which is a fact, it is borne out by the statistics, under the members' proposed bill C-379, with a mandatory minimum of 3 years, we are looking at an expenditure of nearly $500,000 per person convicted under this change to the law alone. Because we know that for anyone who's sentenced over 2 years, that is automatically into a federal institution, whereas 2 years less a day is under provincial jurisdiction. But again, those provincial incarceration costs are relatively similar. Again, I am not saying that jail time isn't justified in certain cases, but I maintain that this is up to the trial judge in the committee to determine, given the facts of the case and the nature of the accused who is before the judge. What we should be doing, Mr. Speaker, is putting far more resources into a variety of programs, such as training resources for youth or the Help Eliminate Auto Theft program, which had very good success in the province of Manitoba between 2014 and 2015. Those results showed, Mr. Speaker, a 30% reduction in gang involvement. 95% of the people did not receive new charges while in the program. 93% of the property offenders in the program did not receive new charges, and there were 0 new auto theft charges during the program period. 95% of the participants did not receive new offenses against person-related charges. So you look at those, Mr. Speaker, and then you look at the cost of these programs. Compared to the $156,000 per year to put someone in a federal institution, the cost of these programs ranged anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 per participant and had amazing success rates. And I don't want the Conservatives to escape the fact that, during their time under the Harper government, there were significant cuts to the RCMP budget and to the CBSA budget that put us in the position that we're in. And just recently, in December of 2023, just last year, they voted against the estimates that provided important funding to the RCMP, to the CBSA, and to Public Safety Canada. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, we do want to see action against the auto theft crisis, but we want to see the investment in those prevention programs that obviously have a track record and are more cost effective to the taxpayer. And on that, Mr. Speaker, I will stick by my principles. Despite all the rhetoric we see from the Conservatives, they know the evidence doesn't support their argument. What is borne out by the evidence is that crime prevention programs are where we need to be putting those smart taxpayer dollars for effective results. Thank you.